Knowledge is power. Information is key. And that is why we aim to unlock the doors of opinion, unveiling the stories that need to be told. The Morning Express on Mainland 98.3 FM from 5 a.m. to 11 a.m. as we invoke the thought-provoking discussion, tackle the tough questions, challenge assumption, and give a voice to the unheard. This is the Morning Express on Mainland 98.3 FM.
Welcome on board the Morning Express.
Good morning.
Good morning, and thank you for being a part of Conversations for today here on Mainland 98.3 FM, the sound of Lagos. It's a rainy day, and I can only imagine the inconveniences that this might pose for you as you go to work today. But all in all, if you're driving your own car, be very, very careful, right? The roads are wet, the roads are slippery, your vision might be altered, you might be having a difficult time. So it's best that if you're controlling your speed, it gives you more control of the situation. Please, this is not the time for you to be speeding on the roads. And if you're using public transportation, also be cautious in the same way you be cautious if you were driving. All in all, just pay attention. The roads once again are slippery, the roads are wet. You know how drivers can be. Just imagine that you're the only sane person on the road. That's what I tell people. Imagine that you're the only sane person on the road as you drive today. Also, wear protective clothing. Have a cardigan, have a sweater, have a trench coat, anything. Have your umbrella. I think by now everyone should have a pocket umbrella in their bag, one that you can actually move around with, the small ones that you can fold and put in your bag. Everyone should have it by now. The inconsistency of rainfall, and also a few flood alerts that we've got in. Unfortunately, Lagos happens to be among those states, so be very, very careful. Anyways, welcome once again to the show. This is Mainland 98.3 FM. It's trends in the papers, your daily look into reports that are dominating the headlines. My name is Sage Babalola. As we'll always inform you, please do well to join our online community so that you're notified when we begin to stream our programs. You also know what programs are going up next after our programs, more or less our schedule. You get an insight if you're following us across our social media platforms. So do well to check us on Facebook and YouTube at Mainland 98.3 FM. We're also on X at Mainland FM. Soon enough, we should start hosting our X spaces and really take advantage of that platform. But for now, do well to follow us on Facebook and YouTube and join the live stream this moment. It's Open Mic Thursday, so today is actually the best time to be on that platform. We'll bring on board Fᴜᴜ as we begin discuss, I beg your pardon, for the day. A lot to be said. We're looking at the Punch, we're looking at the Vanguard, and we're looking at the Guardian newspaper in no particular order. My name is Sage Babalola. We'll start conversations this morning, of course, paying attention to the funeral service of our gallant soldiers, the one who passed away following that attack in Borno State, the one that led to the death of the Brigadier General Brimo. Of course, other soldiers died. A captain died as well. Captain Ismail, I believe, is his name. The funeral service happened and they've been led to rest. Of course, they got full honors. Their families were also accorded honor, and we continue to grieve with them and mourn with them, and ultimately hope that the passing of these soldiers who have put their life on the line for our own safety, their effort is not wasted and their death is not wasted. Although the Punch tells us that only recently, I think a few hours ago, our gallant soldiers also recently repelled an attack along Maiduguri, and so, well, it is with heavy hearts that we're speaking about these our soldiers, and as I said, we hope their death is not a waste. I think Fouad is on board now. Good morning, Fouad Said. How are you today?
I'm good. Good morning, Sage. How are you doing?
I'm well, thank you. It's a rainy day.
Heavy rain.
Yeah, it's extremely terrible. I'm just happy that I stayed back at the office, because imagine having to commute under the rain to work this morning. That'd been very inconvenient. But
well, we are gradually approaching the season. I think we're getting there. It's April already, so what do we do? It's just what it is.
yes.
Nature will have to do its thing. Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't be concerned about it when I finally go to Canada.
Okay.
I'll just wear large coats for the cold because I know you threaten me with, do you know how cold it is? I know, and I don't mind the snow.
Okay. I hear you.
But then, of what side? That aside, I already began to talk about our army, though the members of the Nigeria Army who passed away in that unfortunate attack, the 29 Joint Task Force, the Brigadier General as well, or Hussein Ibrahim, also the Captain Ismail, and all the other soldiers who died. They've been buried. Of course, they were accorded all the honors that was due to them. But I was asking the question that, how do we ensure that deaths like this one do not just go to waste? How do we use this to refuel our energy in the fight against insurgency?
Well, I think the only way to make this their ultimate sacrifice, because this is the ultimate sacrifice. I don't think there's any other sacrifice that's bigger than people laying down their lives, so that you and I and other Nigerians can live in peace. I think the only way we can make this count is to go after these criminals, exterminate them, and ensure that peace returns to the land. Because that was why they were out there actually fighting these criminals. So until we get back to a point where Nigerians can sleep with their two eyes closed, where Nigerians can move from Lagos to Maiduguri or by road without the fear of abductors and kidnappers, where people can go to their farms without criminal herdsmen invading their farms to kill them. Until we get to the point where people can go to mosque and there's no suicide bomber around, detonating and killing people en masse, it will mean that, look, our gallant soldiers who have paid the ultimate sacrifice just not have been properly honored. The final honor that I think we can give to them is not just to accord them all of this, respect at the point of burial, but to ensure that what they wanted, what they stood for, what they fought for, and eventually paid for with their life is achieved, and that is peace and security in Nigeria. We grieve with their families, we mourn with their family. It's not easy. It's not the best of times for any of the families of these fallen heroes. But like if you've ever related with soldiers, say, look, on the day when they sign up to take the job, the first thing and the last thing they think about is death. It can come anytime.
Oh, it's just despite the fact that they know that that can come anytime, so we sometimes wish that certain things are put in place to perhaps postpone the doomsday, right? But it has happened, and again, as you said, we grieve with their family, and we hope that their deaths in some way are meaningful, because I know that's what they would have wanted as well. Well, let's go further into the papers. We're looking at the Punch newspaper. ADC will go for presidential primary if consensus fails, says Atiku Abubakar. Former Vice President Atiku Abubakar has said the 2027 presidential candidate of the African Democratic Congress will emerge through consensus. This is as he stated that the 2027 presidential election will mark the final chapter of his long political career, stating unequivocally that he will not seek office beyond the next election cycle. The ex-vice president also expressed a willingness to support whoever emerges as the winner of the ADC presidential primaries later in the year. He was on an interview on Arise TV, and he says the first option will be to work out a consensus. If that doesn't work out, then we go for primaries, but I will support anybody who emerges. I will step aside for any winner, he says, adding that when specifically asked about Peter Obi, he says, of course, if he is a contender, why not? It was an interview of what a series of questions were being asked about the plans that they have as they progress into the elections next year. And they asked, well, who's going to be the flag bearer? How are you going to go about choosing, or how would you go about your leadership selection process within the party? He says, well, we're going to have a consensus. If that doesn't happen, then we can have our primaries. But if I don't scale through that hurdle, whoever it is that emerges has my full support. But the stakes are higher now for me because this is the last time that I would have a dog in this particular fight. And so he says, well, if anybody who emerges, he would support the person. But of course, his interest is very keenly expressed. For what side?
Well, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, I carefully listened to him yesterday, watching the interview, how he carefully chose his words.
Yeah.
He was very, very careful, answering those questions. And for me, I think that we might just see something interesting come up from the fold of the ADC ahead of the primaries of the political party, whatever eventually happens. We gain too many court cases. The political party is not yet settled. Again, they are still on the high wave. The turbulence is still heavy. Let's hope they eventually get to shore. But at the end of the day, Atiku at 80, he's had a long political career since. It dates back to the PDM days. A lot of people probably would not even remember that Atiku was a presidential candidate in 1992 against MKO Abiola, then in the SDP. As far back as a presidential candidate. That's to tell you how old he is being in the game of attempting to rule this country. In 1999, he became a vice president almost by luck, really, because he had actually contested to be governor of Adamawa State, which I think he had won, until he was nominated by the candidate of the PDP, then Chief Olusegun Obasanjo. I want you to be my running mate. And the rest is history, how he fell off, with his principal, the president. Again, a lot of people attribute that to the fact that he was one of the people that ensured that the third-term agenda did not scale through at that time. And so he had to pay a heavy price for standing against what was considered an anti-democratic aspiration of his principal, Chief Olusegun Obasanjo at that time. Even Obasanjo has always denied that there was nothing like that, but there's enough evidence, enough facts to show that, look, it was something that he wanted. So since then, he's been moving from one political party to another party. He was forced out of the PDP, humiliated out of the party. He made alliances with the current president today. There are people who have said, look, they've been friends, that they've actually been political. In fact, there are people who say Obasanjo's takeover of the Southwest that left Lagos, because then it was only for President Bola Ahmed Tinubu that survived the PDP onslaught on the Southwest at that time under Obasanjo. And there are people who will tell you that, look, it was an Atiku thing, that the reason why Lagos did not fall to the PDP then was Atiku helping his friend, who is now President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, on how to, scale through and survive the politics of that time. Again, a lot of speculations, but this information is out there. I'm sure people listening to me will understand what I'm saying. So he's been there, look, he wants to become president. He's tried so many parties. He's moved from one party to another party. Now, he has said that this is going to be the final bus stop. Again, at 80, what do you expect it?
All right. I mean, there isn't really much of an option, is there?
If he doesn't get it in 2027, the next 4 years will mean it will be 84. So if he gets it in 2031, so at 84, he will rule for another 4 years, it will be 89. God forbid that we have another Paul Biya, in terms of age.
Paul is 93, right? So maybe
so look, the reality is that Paul is almost at a vegetative state.
Right.
If you barely follow the way, he runs his government then in Cameroon. Probably he's just there. There are other people who run the show for him. So I like the fact that he's saying that, look, the ADC is looking at the possibility of a consensus. I want to see how that works out in the ADC. Because consensus will mean people dropping personal ambition for the common good of their political party. And that's always extremely difficult when you have political gladiators like Atiku, Rotimi Amechi, Mr. Peter Obi, all looking at, getting the ticket of the party. Let's see. There are people who have said that these guys know what they are doing. They have their they have their own strategy, and we might just be shocked as to how they are going to be able to organize and arrange themselves to give the APC a shocker, a political shocker. So we're waiting to see what happens. He has said that, look, whoever emerges, if it's not him, he won't support the person, even though there are people who are saying, oh, Atiku should just be the big man in the room, make the big sacrifice by just allowing somebody else who's probably younger to pick the ticket of the party. And when you say things like that, the option that comes into many people's mind is always that the ADC stands a better chance, a bigger chance of defeating President Bola Ahmed Tinubu if Peter Obi is on the ballot, if he is on the ticket, and then probably he has a running mate like Rabiu Musa Kwankwanso, who is also well grounded in the north. But at the end of the day, it's already upon us, so we'll see what happens.
I mean, he did have quite a lot to say about young people in power. They're inexperienced and they're hardly open to mentorship. He even referenced former President Goodluck Jonathan. He's a great man, amazing personality, but it's not a lot of experience at the end of the day. Twists and turns within the political scape oftentimes can offset these individuals who are young. And if we're being honest, in fact, away from Atiku Abubakar's stance on that, we've given young people an opportunity even within ministries, departments and agencies, and it wasn't really any different from what we had when older people were the ones manning those positions. Do you have a contrary opinion to Atiku Abubakar that young does not always equate inexperienced?
I agree. The question is the young people we've given the opportunity to in the past. What kind of young people are they? How did they emerge? All of us. So you can have young people that are not different from the old people we are talking about, really. We had a young governor now who was probably one of the youngest, Yaya Bello. He probably even turned out. Look, but I'm saying that they are young people, sound, gifted, who understand what governance should be. And that's why some of us are talking about, an electoral reforms that can allow the best of the best, go out there, talk to the people, share ideas with the people, and be able to pick up elective positions, not because they have a godfather somewhere, if you understand what I'm saying. Until we get to the point within our electoral space where it is not about one Baba Sokwe, or you have to have a deep pocket. You understand? Look at, I keep referencing the New York election that produced Mamdani. There was no Baba Sokwe anywhere. It was just one random young guy who was able to sell his idea. He had no money. He was not like one of the richest. We are talking about New York. If you pitch him against the other opponents, even within the Democratic Party, if he was a Nigerian team, there was no way he would have been able to claim the ticket of the party. But this was a guy who was able to warm himself on in the minds of the people, did his campaign, and the rest is history.
Fortside, thank you for bringing that up. The fact that everything about him completely is a contravention of what you'd expect, especially for New York. He's Muslim, right? He's an immigrant.
He's an immigrant.
Exactly.
He's not rich.
So that's the thing. Everything that you think would have been a disadvantage for him, the people overlooked it. And he seems like a good guy. He's the one that we want, and he saw it through. So it was such a groundbreaking.
And it's not just before even the people of New York. I'm talking about even the party structure.
Right.
What you call internal democracy within the Democratic Party. There was nobody somewhere dictating to everybody. Yes, there were big wigs in the Democratic Party who did not want him, except for Bernie Sanders, who went all out campaigning for him. The established leadership structure of the Democratic Party did not really go out for him. And that was why, for example, and Obama did not really campaign for him. Hillary Clinton, the big guys did not really, even Kamala Harris, these are guys who never really thought they were going to buy into his idea, coming as a socialist, for example. But look, that did not affect what the people who are members of the Democratic Party wanted. And because of that, he was able to defeat an incumbent and claim the ticket of the party. Check here in Nigeria. So yesterday, I think when we were having media politics, somebody said, FY should go and contest. Now, look, it's not as if we at this level don't have the knowledge, the education, the exposure to govern at the highest level. But if you look at the entire political structure, the electoral space, how do you function?
Yeah.
So I go and join a political party where I will do all the wahala. It's not, and then people will say it's him we want, and then one about we will cancel the thing and say no, go and sit down. I have one cocoa. I can't function in such a ridiculous democratic space. So when people come up to look, until we reform the electoral system, brilliant Nigerians, people of good conscience, smart Nigerians, the best of us will stay away and allow you and your people to continue to do the nonsense you are doing in the name of politics. We see, don't we? I told you about one of my brothers now says he wanted to become a councillor. The party already chose him at the primaries, and then the next year, he's not sure yet, so they might still change it to, I say, we say, the party leader, and eventually they changed it. All this nonsense that we are doing, that we say, they say,
well, there you have it again. Let's see how the ADC would play their cards. And Fuad, as you insinuated, maybe this silence is a strategy for them. They don't want to put all their cards on the table.
Maybe.
And they would surprise us in the coming months. So let's keep our fingers crossed. Well, let's move a little bit to The Guardian, because I want us to talk about the state of our economy. It's not very interesting, but we need to talk about it. Fresh concerns over funding risk as Nigeria's public debt hits 159.28 trillion naira. There are a few riders here. 23.8 trillion fiscal deficit adds to sustainability risk. It is wrong to benchmark borrowing on GDP. Tinubu losing grip on debt to revenue after initial firm control. Current tension may increase external debt cost, IMF warns. Global debt to GDP may spike to 100% in 2029. Now, Nigeria continues to dig itself into a deeper debt hole, not necessarily because it borrows more than its peers, but it earns far less than is required to service its liabilities. At 70.7%, debt service cost to revenue ratio is taking an average of the past 3 years. The federal government barely has much left to bridge the infrastructure gap, which is estimated at $300 million yearly. President Tinubu made significant effort in reducing the proportion of expenditure thrown into debt funding. The figure, which had almost hit 100% in 2023, at some point stood at 28% and even slowed to 60% in 2024. Last year's final budget implementation report has not been made public, but the half-year report points to a possible uptick of 6 months debt service cost, which has risen to 9.14 trillion, or 84% of the accrued revenue of 10.93%. Again, that's why I said it's not very interesting, because the numbers can be overwhelming and we lose track of the actual point.
We'll break it down. Very simple.
I read it. Yeah. So the concern here is that, again, they highlighted that the borrowing streak that we're on, yes, maybe it's concerning, but it's not something that is strange. Other people borrow money. Our problem is that we're borrowing money to take care of recurrent expenditure. In fact, the monies that we're making, we're not even making enough to offset our liabilities, not to talk of having enough to then channel it into a recurrent expenditure. Look at the in the last 6 months, right? Our debt servicing was about 9.14 trillion naira, and the revenue that we made was 10.93 trillion naira. So we had less than 1 trillion naira left after we had removed the monies we owed from the money that we've made. And so the IMF is saying, if you continue like this, you would not be able to focus on any developmental project, because the bulk of the money that you're making, which is not even really up to par or as expected, you're using it to pay debt. And they're concerned about our debt to revenue ratio, and our debt. We're just putting everything on GDP. Where would you find money, basically, to fund your capital project if the bulk of your revenue goes into servicing your liabilities and your debt?
Now, Sage, on a simple outlook, on the first outlook, what comes to mind is that, we may just run into trouble anytime soon. And if you remember when we were having a conversation after middle politics, I said, look, you can't discuss the economy of a nation without putting all of the variables on table. You've got to look at everything. And so when you see people picking and choosing which variables to consider when analyzing the state of things in Nigeria, I just laugh, because it comes from mere hypocrisy. The reality is that if you put all of the variables on ground, Sage, look at microeconomic indices, macroeconomic indices, do an aggregation of our monetary policies as against our fiscal policies, you know that we are in trouble. Don't be deceived. Forget all of the propaganda coming from government, all of the figures. Again, we've even discovered that many of the figures are actually false. We did a review during the week, says, and the facts are out there that look, all of the claims of the federal government that we're already doing about 1.7 million barrels per day are all false. In the last 8 months, we've not been able to do more than 1.3 million barrels of crude oil production. So again, for some of us, when they throw out this data, these statistics, we check and we discover that look, some of these things are just put out there, to create an impression that the government is getting it right. And I like the fact that there are about 3 economists that the Guardian spoke to on this issue of how problematic our debt could become if we are not careful. Again, the IMF is already raising that alarm. And you saw that one of the economists said that, look, it is wrong for you to do your calculations about the problematic nature of our debt by only looking at debt to GDP ratio. Yeah. What about other indices? Yeah. Again, he talked about how we're even calculating our GDP. That look, to calculate a GDP, we are not even running a formal economy where all of the figures can come to the table and can say, yes, these GDP figures are actually accurate. So a lot of times what we do is to aggregate.
We're largely informal.
It's largely informal. So how do you come up with some of these figures? So if you are now pitching your debt ratio as against a GDP calculation that may not completely be accurate, then you are just deceiving yourself. So in reality, if you look at our situation, and that's why when we talk about debt to GDP ratio, and that look, the ratio shows that we can still borrow more. I keep saying that. What about the variable of what? Our corruption index. You cannot pick and choose. You cannot isolate figures. I think that was the argument. For example, yesterday, I was having with one Mr. Badamosi that called from Surulere, who said, "Oh, Nigeria is a poor country," and that look, if you look at our per capita income, you show that look, Nigeria is a poor country. I say, look, no problem. Well, what about the variable of how the government in itself runs itself, the lifestyle of the people in government? Does it show that we're a poor country? And if you say we're a poor country, what it means is that you're also shooting yourself in the foot by the calculation that they give now by the tax man, the NRS man, Zakadideji. Because if you say we're a poor country, then his own calculation that, we are buying at 50% less the average price of petroleum products in the world is also a problem. So if we are poor, how then you calculate us against countries that are rich? If you say Nigeria is poor, how do you put our own figure as against countries that are far, far richer than us? What it means is not different from what I'm saying, that look, our earning power makes it nonsensical for Zadadiji to compare petroleum pricing products with that of the US and other countries. In reality, Sage, let us even ask ourselves, we ballooned the debt figure now. I think it's about 157 trillion naira.
159 trillion, actually.
We are close to 160 trillion.
Right.
And so we ask ourselves, what can we show? What is available? What is on ground to justify this level of borrowing? As at the time President Bola Ahmed Tinubu was taking over from Buhari, the debt was around 87 trillion, Sage. So, and it stood at 87 trillion. That means in 3 years plus, we've almost doubled it. Now, why it is concerning for most Nigerians is that, look, this was a government that came in and said, you know what, we cannot continue to borrow. We are already borrowing to pay salaries. Many governors are borrowing. There was a borrowing spree. And that what we have done is to remove subsidy. Because again, at that point, we were already almost at the verge of borrowing. In fact, we are already borrowing to even pay for subsidy. But when we remove subsidy, what will happen is that, look, there will be massive reduction in the level of borrowing across the country. We'll be able to put that into infrastructural development. Say, look at the budget performance from 2023, 2024 to 2025. What do we have?
The capital element of the budget is mostly never executed. So
aggregate our level of borrowing with what are supposed to be savings from subsidy removal, and then ask yourself, and then the aggressive revenue drive that we have at this time, and then ask yourself, why are we still struggling to fund over 70% of our capital expenditure? I just said, aggregate the fact that, you know what, we've gone into crazy borrowing spree.
Right.
Number one. Number two, we remove subsidy. So And what was said was that, look, that was going to help us save a lot of money.
Right.
Then pitch that again, add that to the aggressive revenue drive that you have in terms of taxes, levies, and revenue that are accrued to this government. And then you ask yourself, why are we at a point where we are still not able, say, to fund over 70% of our capital expenditure, budget after budget? Why are we still rolling budget into budgets? Say, and then you now look at all, and that's why I keep saying, if you have a country that is doing so much with monetary policies, fine-tuning with monetary policies here and there, but you keep faltering on what you are supposed to do at the fiscal end, you are just deceiving yourselves. If you cannot have a convergence between monetary and fiscal policy, in fact, the fiscal policy is even more important.
Yes.
So where are we on our fiscal policy? Where is the fiscal discipline in government to ensure that, look, there's a serious commitment to what we are doing at the monetary end? Say, whatever we think we are doing at the monetary end of our policies, are we showing enough fiscal discipline within government to bring up a convergence and then for us to see the results? We talked about ⴘᴜᴜ report. Oh, can we reduce the cost of governance? Where is the leadership in telling Nigerians that, what, it's going to be tough and you get better? Look at the convoys of our governors. Has it reduced? The convoy of the president, has it reduced? The lifestyle of our politicians, does it show any fiscal discipline? And then we ask ourselves, at this level of borrowing, what do we have on ground to show? Oh, we are giving more money to the governors. Has anything improved across the states?
Well, for what side, since we're on that subject matter, we might as well just include the story of the unfortunate increase of our inflation rates. Although, once again, Muda Yusuf, for example, the CPPE head, is really not a fan of the whole rebasing technique. But then let's just accept that it is what it is. We were 15.06 as at March of 2026. Unfortunately, the war in the Middle East have taken us right back to 15.38%. And again, concerns has started to come up that if we continue like this, we might just find ourselves going back to where we're coming from. Of course, they pointed out some of the drivers of this situation, and even the IMF is telling us that a lot of the countries that are most affected by this Middle East crisis are in sub-Saharan Africa. And she's advising, that's Kristalina Georgieva, she's advising that, see, if you happen to be a country that is in that bracket, seek out help sooner. Ultimately, that means come and borrow more money. But she also, yes, of course, come and borrow more money. But she also highlights that there's some countries that are adopting certain measures. For example, reduction of energy consumption. She says there's some place where they are making transportation free. There's certain countries that are making transportation free. They are asking people to work from home like we did in COVID. She says countries that are affected should also adopt systems that will sort of minimize cost of people and ultimately help to fix inflation issues. But if you cannot do it by yourself, of course, come to the IMF and come and borrow money as always.
And then chop the money as usual. And then you'll be in debt.
But it's just specific to some countries.
They chop the money now.
That badly behave. There are countries that borrow from the IMF.
In sub-Saharan Africa, what you find is people borrowing these monies. And IMF and World Bank knows that the leaders will chop the money and keep their countries perpetually indebted. It's just there now. The figures are there. The facts are there. And the reality of what we have now, Sage. And when, again, we need to pay attention to what key industry players are telling us, Sage. I've been thinking about what Alhaji Aliko Dangote said the last time when he visited the president. He said it clearly. You all go back to your churches and your mosques and you go to Igbale. Start to pray that this Iran war ends very, very soon. If not, we're going to run into trouble. He said it. I've also read from somewhere an interview where he had said that, look, as it stands, the only thing that the Dangote refinery has in excess is petrol, diesel, and Jet A1. They're already running out of stock. And that's why you can see that I think diesel now is selling for well over 2,000 naira per litre, say. About 2,200 naira per litre.
Forgive me again for interrupting.
Yes.
It's just I have short attention span and I might forget. Jet A1, airline operators are complaining that Jet A1 went from 900 naira to 3,300 naira. So if you have plans to fly, may the Lord be with you.
And you cannot use the roads now, Sage. So you see the problem. Double jeopardy. The roads are not safe. And if you must fly now, you have to pay through your nose. And that's why I'm saying that people should pay attention when we say these things. People should take their time to pay attention to the details. This is not about sentiment. It's not about you sitting back in your house and thinking somebody hates the president. Nobody hates anybody. We are in this together. We live in this reality together. We are all business owners. At some point, we are business managers. In your house, you manage your house. You have your daily expenses. Gauge it against the current realities. We are not saying you should not love a politician or you should not be a member of a political party. That's your own problem. What we are talking about and what we speak to on the show is the reality of the country, irrespective of political affiliation and the emotions and sentiments that can come with it. I've just told you, a lot of business owners say it. And it will be sad for people who will now come. There are people who have not run any business before, say it. They have not managed any business before. In fact, he has not managed the business of 3 before. And when you say this is, they come and say, oh, no, and I just look at them because you don't even know what's going on. The realities are, look, if we are not careful, more businesses are going to shut down, say it. Because again, energy cost is not a joke. And that was why when people like Zach were saying what they are saying, I just shook my head. When people like Akpabio was making a joke out of a very terrible situation. And that's why you see that Muda Yusuf is always complaining. The man, because those are business owners, those are people who run their businesses on the reality of Nigeria. They are not politicians who have access to free money, say it. And that's why when you see some of our politicians, immediately they leave the government, 1, 2, 3 years, go and look at them. They are broke. Hello, 1, 2, 3 years, go and check them again. They cannot even fund the lifestyle they were funding when they were in government. But business owners who live on what they earn, they sweat to get these things. They know that, look, this is the worst that they've ever had. If we are not careful, businesses are going to shut down. More businesses. We are on Band A, for example, say, do you know how much we expend on diesel monthly? We have to pay salaries, the overhead is there. Running costs, running into millions of naira. Unfortunately, the people are not earning enough to even be able to, put money into businesses. So if you aggregate everything, that's why Muda Yusuf always complain about reducing our inflation figures. And I've said it in my own little understanding of economics. You can rebase the figures. You can never rebase the realities of the people. You can tinker, you can manipulate figures throughout propaganda here and there. In reality, the reality of the people is something you cannot rebase. They know their own realities. And if they are saying inflation figures have gone up again, look, people always mistake inflation when they say, inflation figures have dropped, to mean that, things have become cheaper. No. Inflation is the rate at which the price of things are going up. Yeah. It does not mean that the price of things are not going up. No. What it means is that the rate by which prices are going up have reduced. It's not that things have become cheaper. Like when you talk about headline inflation. Right. And with us here in Siege, like the IMF is saying, some of these other countries are able to help their people through these tough times because they have a structured system. I'll give you one example, Siege. Most of these nations, for example, have a very well-structured public transport system. So they can afford, for example, to subsidize it for them. Because again, that's why you see our politicians, some of the best politicians, some of the 4 politicians in Nigeria, who will not dare use our public transport in this country. When they go abroad, don't you see them in trains, public trains? Because the public transport system in those countries can be used at that level. So once you have, for example, about 90% of your population commuting using your public transport system, there's the tram, there's the monorail, there's the light rail, you have the ferry services all working. So what they can do, for example, is subsidize at that level. Do we have that here, Tate? And that's why the only thing that people can beg the government to do is to see how we can work with Dangote to subsidize the price of petroleum products at that end. When people talk about giving Dangote crude, say, I keep asking myself, where is the good crude going to come from?
1.3 million.
Where is the? But I've seen a lot of people, if who keep saying, give crude to Dangote at a reduced price. The crude is not available. OPEC have just told you that in the last 8 months we've been doing about 1.3, sometimes even less than 1.3. By the time you remove our sale agreement, we will say that again. You remove the one that we will steal. You have to put that one there today.
The one for the IOCs.
You remove the ones for the IOCs, the people who have invested in helping us bring the thing out. The ones that the government will also want to sell, so that at least they can make some foreign exchange. What is there left to give to Dangote? And so when that Adediji went on praising the president for being the savior of Dangote refinery, where is that coming from? Yes, a lot of times when Dangote talks, it sounds politically correct. You will expect that as a businessman, you don't want to, you don't want to say something that will make the government unhappy. But somehow, sometimes you see him coming to say the truth. The last time he told us, they didn't do anything for me, is what have they done? Even the naira for crude sale is still benchmarked in dollar. He has to pay a premium to still get this crude. And how much crude is he even getting from the government? 80% of the crude he's using, he still has to import into the country.
Well, I mean, I miss when Dangote was very, very vocal. The last couple months last year, he had
Baba,
so
don't tire
much
out.
to say. Even when we're talking about the stake that we had, he says reached 12%, 7.2% Lenny Azal. He was so vocal about it. But
I paid
again,
for the land. I'm still bringing feedstock from all over the world.
he said a lot. But
Even the naira for crude that you say you are doing, I pay a premium. I still have to pay some extra to get it. It's benchmarked at dollar. There's also what is 80% of the feedstock I still have to import into the country.
well, a businessman is a businessman. I think right now he's just trying to be diplomatic, but it is what it
He's
is.
telling us the truth too. You better we'll say you pray, Abby.
Forward side is still trending papers. Let's move on to other stories. My name is Sage Babalola, analyst Forward side. I see everyone on the live stream. I really enjoy when, as we go through the stories, people are following us and are reacting on our live stream. Makes me extremely excited that you're paying attention. We'll go back to the punch now. We have opposition crisis self-inflicted. APC chair tells ADC. The All Progressive Congress has defended the administration of President Bola Tinubu, insisting that democracy is thriving in Nigeria. The party rejects claims that the ruling APC is responsible for the internal crisis. Apologies, my throat closed on me. That's why I don't like the rain, Fuad. My throat has started to close on me. Anyways, we have I cannot help it. I'm not built for this life, Fuad. Anyways, the APC is saying that they're claiming that the APC is attacking opposition parties, but we have about 19 registered and only about 4 or 5 are having problems. So where's this narrative that all opposition parties are being suppressed? And the problems that these parties have are internal leadership crisis. So why is the APC allegedly responsible for it?
I said that in the APC. Is it, who did I attribute that APC statement to? I want to know.
Person Tower, you are that the national secretary.
Okay, the national chairman.
Yes, and Dr. Ajibola Basiru as well.
Okay, so we can say, well, this is at the highest level of the APC. It is true, Sage. Why are they blaming the APC? Sage. Why? How many political parties? We have about 21 or 22 now.
About 19, actually.
And I think one has been added to it. But whatever it is, it's only about 4 now, Abby.
Yeah,
4
have problems. Yeah.
So I say others are like boot party, Abby.
Yeah, can you imagine?
PRP.
Can you imagine?
So why are they blaming the APC?
It's you too now, Fuaside. You too.
I blame them. Me? Have I ever blamed the APC?
Why are you doing that?
Have I? No, I'm not blaming the APC. These other opposition parties, they are not serious. They are not serious. Why can't we choose from boot party? Abi PRP. Dr. Nantawe, Professor Nantawe, you are correct, and Dr. Abibola Basiru. Why are they blaming the APC? In fact, this is the best we've ever had in democracy. The best. The opposition is thriving. The ruling party, they're on a roller coaster. Why are they blaming them? Truly said. At least, if there's no opposition, there's the wicked PDP. Is that not an opposition?
Chai.
See, it's an opposition.
I say chai now. What do you want me to say again? Abi, inside 19. It's only 4 that have problems.
Only 4.
There's no opposition. There's an extra 14.
There's opposition.
16, yes.
Whether they are viable or not does not matter. It's an opposition.
They're registered and they recognize by law.
They don't have to be viable. And in fact, let me help them add to it. Even if in 2027 there is no opposition against the ruling party, the heavens will not fall. Must there be opposition? Which constitution says there must be opposition? Say. No, I'm saying. I want to look. Professor Nantawe, Dr. Ajibola Basiru. It is true. Why are people complaining that the PDP has problems because Wike is scattering it on behalf of the ruling party? Is there anything new? That is that not politics? Is that not politics? Why is the Labour Party in problem? The ADC too, Mr. Gombe, not few, and the Bello. Why is this scattering the party? Is that our problem? It is the best we've ever had. But say, like Barrister Cody said, if he walks like a dog, sounds like a dog, and looks like a dog, it's a dog.
Well,
we cannot be deceived.
This gentleman is saying, have you ever seen any member of the APC interfering in internal party crisis? Have you seen anyone? No. So why do they keep pointing accusing finger at the APC?
Why? It's unfair.
Why are you
it's
doing
unfair.
That? So wrong. Please.
So wrong. And people should stop. People should stop calling the APC and mentioning them in this problem.
Yes.
It's unfair.
ADC should do they should fix.
They should go and do their homework. If they are serious, they should go and clean their mess by themselves.
Even when they bought, 𝐴 Kachukwu is actually launching verbal attacks at the Nigeria Bar Association. The NBA has said that they insist that courts should not interfere in internal issues of party. But 𝐴 Kachukwu says that if you remove the judicial factor from even the internal workings of political party, you're just giving an avenue for certain elements to come and make a mess of it. And that, yes, as much as we understand, well, allow me to use the term separation of power here, and that courts should not necessarily interfere, but still that some judicial interference might be necessary sometime. And so the NBA should not just outrightly say, oh, courts should stay clear of party issues.
You see, these are democracy. It is only God that can save it. Let's just keep praying that God should save this democracy. Even though I've seen a lot of people who have said that we don't really have a democracy. What we have is a civilian rule. An extremely corrupt, manipulative civilian rule is what we have. Because in reality, this is not what democracy is about. And the sad part of the entire conversation is that, look, we keep desecrating our institutions. The institutions are supposed to be the pillar of this democracy. We keep desecrating them and dragging them into our dirty politics. The last of them all is the judiciary, which we have now successfully dragged into the political mess of this country. So people like 𝐴 Kachukwu can say whatever they want to say. In reality, the courts will always intervene. Will always have it. Because again, the reality is that politicians will never play by the rules. And they are also willing and available for anybody who wants to manipulate the process. So the courts would always have a say. In fact, the Electoral Act that the NBA was citing, Section 83. Yeah. If you read that entire Section 83 itself, it even contradicts itself. There are subsections that also talks about the right of the courts to also interfere in internal issues of political parties. So even our extant laws are completely confusing, contradictory. Unfortunately, too, you have just courts, different courts who are also happy to mess up everything. You see, the sad part of everything we now have is that politicians now know the court to go and shop for judgment. They know the courts to go to and shop for judgment. Mess up everything. And I'm not surprised. Where we are with the judiciary on election on political matters, we are only praying and begging our politicians. They should not set this country on fire.
No, thank you, Fuad. Well, as a woman once said, the minute the political class understood the authority of the courts, they immediately infiltrated that system. Well, Fuad, that's all we can take for this morning. Thank you very much for your analysis. Let's take a break and then we go straight to Mainland Focus. It's Open Mic Thursday. You get to be the one to pick the stories that we focus on. Don't go anywhere.
You're listening to Mainland 98.3 FM.